Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Panels and Bars, the show where we usually talk about anything comic book and
Oh,
video
wait a
game
second.
related.
Hold on. Hold on. Could you look directly into my eyes while I look into the camera? Yeah?
Sure, go for
Just for
it.
a second. Okay. We belong together, and you know that I'm right.
Thank you so much.
Why do you play with my heart? Why do you play with my mind? You said we'd be together, said our love would never die. But how can you love me and leave me and never say goodbye? Oh, I can't sleep a night without holding you tight. Each time I try, girl, I break down and cry. There's a pain in my head. Oh, I'd rather be dead. Spinning around and around, although we've come to the end of the road, still I can't let go. It's unnatural. You belong to me, and I belong to you. Okay,
That's one of the nicer interruptions.
sure. I thought that it would be more interesting than you talking.
Wow. Cool. That's a great way to start our podcast. Thanks for that. Please like and subscribe. He's always like this, but please like and subscribe. So this week we're watching the action comedy romance True Lies, the another banger from your boy James Cameron. For no reason other than we like James Cameron, and this is slowly becoming a James Cameron appreciation podcast. It actually been a long time since I'd watched this, so I remembered the iconic scenes. I remembered how the villain is dispatched of. I remembered the striptease. I remember
You're fired.
I remember the intro, and then everything between that was kind of a blur. So those things still really work for me. There are a few things where I'm like, oh, this is a bit cheesy 90s, but generally, I think it's one of those films, and we say this a lot about the good films that review. You can just see how much fun everyone involved is having in it, and so that kind of radiates through the screen. So it's a very easy film to enjoy because, other than one thing that we'll get to later, it seems like the entire cast just had their time. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger has said multiple times this is his favorite of all his movies.
Yeah.
I think for a long time, until maybe Everything Everywhere All at Once, Jamie Lee Curtis said this was her favorite of all her movies. And Cameron, I think, is just really proud of it, is in terms of he was really kind of pushed out of what would usually be his comfort zone, and he really enjoyed that experience. Tom Arnold has said basically he owes his career to this. So it's one of those things that everyone involved in it, they had fun making it. They really look back on it fondly. And I think, like a lot of James Cameron stuff, it's one of those things that you look at now and you're like, this would never get greenlit today, which is a really sad indictment of the current state of the film industry.
I mean, I think it might get greenlit if James Cameron wanted to do it. I think if James Cameron went to somebody and was all like, I need, because it was the most expensive film ever made when it was produced.
Yeah.
And like the fact that it's like, what if James Bond was sillier? What if you took Roger Moore era James Bond and you made it sillier than that? Is just like such a wild swing. What I would say is, I was expecting all the way through for it to get like deeply problematic, and it didn't.
Yeah. No. I can actually say something. I actually, and I'll say this to my partner Adriana, that there's a moment with the terrorists are doing their speech, and like, no, seriously, I mean, there's a lot about the terrorists which I think is slightly problematic through a modern lens, but also when he's giving his speech about their motivations, I'm like, the boy is spitting. Like, he's essentially saying, USA, you've bombed us into oblivion. You terrorize our women. You terrorize our children. You call us terrorists. And the thing is, the threat is not even all out war. The threat is remove the US forces from our lands and we won't drop this bomb. He's got a point. The boy is
Yeah.
making some points. I'm sorry.
I mean, what I would say is it is, without a doubt, the most pre 9/11 film that has ever existed.
Yeah.
Like, because now, post 9/11, and I assume that most people are either our age or a bit younger. I'm sure there's some people listening who grew up in a pre 9/11 world and have a lot of experience with that. But like, the idea of like silly Islamic terrorists is really not something that you would see in a film after
Yeah.
September 11th. Like,
So I don't know if you know this, but Cameron wrote a script that was approved
for a sequel.
Yeah. And then said, yeah, terrorists just aren't funny nowadays, so it got scrapped. But yeah, there was a planned sequel.
Like the fact that the villains are a Islamic terrorist group called the Crimson Jihad, who then, you know, are subject to like, oh, we got hit in the dick jokes, is like, it's kind of like, and it's not like Four Lions where they're like being like, this is like definitely extremely transgressive. Like, it so clearly comes from a world where the people making it didn't think that these kind of people were a genuine threat to America.
Yeah.
Which is like a wild thing to see.
Yeah. I mean, Cameron has said that one of the initial scripts, they were going to be Irish terrorists.
Yeah. And I think you can see, like, that again, it's like, it's just a world where that's not a real thing. So having it be like, there's a moment in this where he's recording his terrorist manifesto and the battery on the camera runs out. The guy recording is too embarrassed to tell him because he's scared of him, and he's just getting like sweatier and sweatier, and it keeps cutting to him delivering this genuinely, not only like is it quite reasonable what he's saying, but also it's like really well delivered. It's like this chillingly powerful statement, and then in the corner there's just this blinking low battery icon, and it's just like, it's so silly.
It really is.
And like, yeah, he gets hit in the penis by the jet at the end. Obviously then he's all like, he gets fired off the missile and Arnold's like, you're fired, with a nice quip. And then there's this shot of him flying towards the camera attached to a missile, all, ooh, and then a reaction shot of his mates in the helicopter being all like, oh no. And it's just like, it's like, what if the threat of Islamic terrorists was treated with about the same level of seriousness that burglars are in Home Alone?
Yeah.
And that is just like crazy to see. And then there's bits of the bit where he's lying to his own wife, which are a little bit off.
Yeah.
But what I would say is what's interesting
what I think is really clever about that though is that sorry, because I feel like I might have cut you off to make the same point. But I do like, and I think this is the thing, Arnold has so many performances that are really underrated. And I think the subtleness of like his facial expressions and things he does in this film are brilliant. And I like that when he believes that she's being unfaithful, she's lying to him, he doesn't see the hypocrisy at all in the fact that he feels betrayed.
But I think what's really clever about it is that so many films like this would have the spy be like, you know, lying to his family, but it would be for the greater good, and so it would be okay. And actually, the very clear message here is that him lying to his family was absolutely not okay, and that not only is it hurting them, but it's hurting him. And that what he was doing by lying to them about him being a spy was unfair on everybody and a deeply immoral choice, which is such an interesting take. Because, like, I've seen so many films like that.
If I had to nitpick, he doesn't really face any consequences for it, because after he saves her from the bridge, he gets a snog, then he saves their daughter, and then everyone's just in on it. So, like, he doesn't really face any kind of serious consequences for his actions.
He doesn't face any serious consequences, but he does learn an important lesson, and he does change his behavior in response to that. So I think that the thing is, and in some ways, the fact that he doesn't need a, well, I'm going to leave you moment, and that he, despite not facing the consequences, still comes to the realization that what he's been doing is wrong and rectifies that behavior is really interesting. And it's like, and it's not what because I couldn't really remember a lot of that plot line. Like you said, I remembered like the horse chase and stuff like that. What's the only thing that's really problematic is the way that his partner speaks, because he's like, horrible.
Yeah.
But again, like, I don't know that we're supposed to identify with his partner, because his partner is like it's kind of like the line that they tread in South Park with Cartman, where like his partner's definitely always the butt of the joke, but sometimes you're obviously supposed to be laughing at how outrageous the things his partner says, as though you're kind of in on it.
Yeah.
But like, in general, I thought that the whole, like, I'll tell you what really got me was I really, really wasn't expecting the chair to turn around and have Charlton Heston in it. I'd completely forgotten that. And he had that silly eye patch on, and he was
know
all
the story
like,
behind the eye patch? Honestly, this has been one of my favorite films to research the trivia on.
no.
So he came in with pink eye, and it was very obvious. And so the director was just like, James Cameron was like, just makeup department, do something. And they were like, it's pink eye. What do you want us to do? So someone just gave him an eye patch. And then James Cameron actually said, and this is apparently on the DVD commentary, he's like, oh shit, he looks like Nick Fury. This is even better. So he's a deliberate Nick Fury kind of send off, but that happened totally by accident. And there's just loads of little things in the script like that. Like, we'll get to the striptease later, but apparently, because I don't know if you've heard this, I've heard it 1,000 times that the fall was accidental and they kept it in, and that's 100% not true. It was Jamie Lee Curtis's idea, but she also had the great idea that she and Cameron weren't going to tell Schwarzenegger. So that moment where he kind of jumps to pick her up and then realizes he has to stay in character is Arnold Schwarzenegger. So there's great little moments like that, but a lot of it is really well thought out. And I mean, I don't know, do you know much about the making of it in the first place, how it came to be?
Yes, I'm aware of aspects of it because I have watched the commentary before. I didn't have a chance to, because it's not on Disney Plus, which is a fucking crime. All Arnold Schwarzenegger commentaries should be on Disney Plus. But like the thing that blew me away was that my memory of this was that it was an action film. Yeah, but it's not. It's a comedy film. It's all out a comedy film.
And even a lot of the action is very comedic.
Yeah, and it's not really got loads of big action set pieces. No. What it's got is a lot of like really, really funny scenes, and like you say, even the ones that look like they're going to be serious action scenes are almost always played for laughs at some point.
The scene in which they blow up a real bridge.
Yeah.
Ends with terrorists being killed by a stray pigeon or a seagull or something.
Yeah, you know? That seagull bits.
There's just tons of ridiculous, like Jamie Lee Curtis killing a bunch of experienced killers by accidentally dropping a machine gun. There's so many ridiculous moments in this.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It is just like, it's not even slightly. It's like fucking Hot Shots or something. Yeah. It's like a full-on Naked Gun style parody of the types of films that it's doing.
Yeah.
But then one thing that always gets me, and I always think this when we watch older films, and I thought it even more with this, is that like, the action that there is so tightly paced, and it's so readable, and it's so like the fact that there's a sequence where he is chasing a man on a motorbike through a hotel on a horse, and there's never a moment where I'm confused about where they are or what's happening or how they got there or any of it. Is just so impressive. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that I think is like the conversation he has with the horse as well. He's all like, "You're supposed to be a police officer."
This is one of the things about Cameron that, you know, we say it time and time again. I don't understand how any man is in control of all of that. The bridge. I mean, I've actually seen a behind the scenes documentary just about that bridge being destroyed, and it's a mixture of. I think it was that they had to research and find a bridge that was long enough to meet the demands of that scene, but that was also going to be blown up anyway. And they luckily found one that had met both those things. But then they realized once the bridge is blown up, it's blown up. So we're going to have to make a miniature so we can cover the angles. So they made a miniature. But then when you make miniatures and you have water around them, there's another problem, which is that to match the speed of everything in real time, you have to change the speed of how you're filming water, because water that fills up a cup doesn't flow at the same rate of water that fills up a swimming pool. So there's all these technical aspects for what? That's not even maybe 5 minutes of the film.
Yeah, it's a single short scene, and
this is what Cameron does. Like think how many units had to be involved in filming that over and over again, getting the frame rates right so that the miniature matches the real ocean, making sure that the explosion matches this matchbox car with the real track. It's insane for an
Yeah.
action comedy. Who would go to those lengths? Like, nobody.
Well, and that's the thing, is that like most of the action is played for laughs, most of it's not serious, and it's still just so much better than the majority of films.
Yeah.
And not just like the majority of films of its era, but like the majority of films that I've ever seen.
Mhm.
Like, and it's the level of commitment is unbelievable.
It really is.
And
Especially for a film that wasn't Cameron's idea. That's the craziest thing about it. And like, I don't know if you noticed it, but when you watch the opening scene, it says original screenplay by, and there's 3 writers. And then that's immediately followed by screenplay by James Cameron, which is because once Arnold gave him the idea, he hired a bunch of very seasoned comedic writers, read the script and went, yeah, I don't like any of this. And then rewrote it himself. And only one line of dialogue from that original script made it through. And that's "you're fired." So like, a man who didn't even want to do this film in the first place then ended up so dedicated to it that he rewrote it from the ground up. That's James
Yeah.
Cameron's commitment to what he does. It's insane.
And what I forget as well is that, like, I think it's easy to forget because we watch films with him in being an action hero. But Arnold is so funny. Like, he's
Comic
just,
timing is brilliant.
it's unbelievable. And he consistently delivers these performances that tread this extremely careful line between being like silly and over the top and serious. Like the fact that there's sequences after they've been kidnapped, there's a sequence there where he like effortlessly just switches into action hero murdering people mode. And
Yeah.
he's terrifying and powerful and stuff, and then it's straight back into comedy. And there's not a beat missed, which is just like unbelievably difficult. I gotta say, I was strongly reminded of Hank Scorpio when he was flamethrowering everybody. Like, that was so funny.
You're missing a lot of fun here, Homer. But yeah, no, you're right. And like I said, one of the scenes that really stuck out to me is, man, I don't remember him being this good, but he's great, is when he's first gone to surprise his wife, he overhears what he thinks is her having an affair. And then he comes home and he's doing the whole, "How was your day, honey?" And the camera just pans in on him. And every word she's saying is making him angrier and angrier. And he's so good. He's so good.
He really is. I also like. We've got to get this out of the way. But man,
Bill Paxton.
Bill Paxton is
Yep.
so funny in
Bill
this.
Paxton was
Like,
the best.
he's so creepy and sleazy and stupid, and like that bit when they're in the car and he fantasizes about just killing it. It's just so horrible as well. Like,
It's so visceral, and it's just
Yeah.
blood pouring down his face.
and it's like, and also because like the tone of the killing and a lot of the rest of it is James Bondy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, it's not like there's a lot of bits where he shoots people and they fall down, and there's no like, you know, but that is just so intensely violent.
Yeah.
What I loved was that it starts off and there's this like terrorist plot, and it's going through the first like act of the film, and then he thinks his wife's cheating on him, and he just absolutely appropriates all the resources of the government agency he works for to surveil and track his wife, and including like, and at first it's just his partner, and he starts calling in other units and squads and stuff and using government buildings, and it's just like, and what's ridiculous about it is that like he's completely serious about it, and then for the whole second act the terrorist plot is just completely dropped.
Yep.
And nobody mentions it, and he's just still like, I ain't give a fuck about terrorists detonating the nuclear warheads they've stolen. My wife might be cheating on me. And like, and again, that's just like such an insane take to
Yeah.
have in a film, but it's so in keeping with the tone of this film.
Yeah.
And like, and then there's some really like with the surveillance and the following and stuff, there's some really genuinely great spy stuff in it.
Yeah.
That's like actually tense and clever and interesting.
What I do love is that, like, one of the great aspects of it is it treats, you know, even though obviously he has a 9 to 5 as a cover story, it does treat a lot of the spycraft as a 9 to 5. So he's got friends at the office and they chit chat and their bosses are
Yeah.
quite happy with the results. And so part of that is when he's on this mission where Everyone else is under the pretense that they are chasing a dangerous terrorist, and he knows he's going after his wife. There is still that some of that stupid office frat boy humor where they're like, haha, yeah, she's got her head in his lap. And everyone's laughing, like, because they're, even though they're supposed to be a bunch of world-renowned spies, they're also just jocks, essentially.
Yeah. Well, and also, like, there's that excellent bit where his wife tries to run away, and one of the guys hits her with a gun, and then he just smacks him. Because he's all, and it's just like, and yeah, and like, there's so much physical comedy. There's so much like, but again, as with all the great films that we watch, there's so much delivered in terms of plot and character through the physical action. And again, like, Arnold is brilliant. Like, the thing is that, like, it's not exactly a giant shock that Jamie Lee Curtis is really funny. I feel like everybody knows Jamie Lee Curtis is really funny, right?
Yeah.
Like, but like, the fact that Arnold's matching her for comedy and they play off each other so well and work together so well is kind of wild, because you would definitely on paper be all like, well, there's no way he's as funny as her.
Yeah.
But actually, they're just excellent together.
Yeah,
They're
so and the funny thing is,
so
another
good.
great thing from the makeup, he didn't want her in the film originally. I think he had like Jodie Foster or someone else in mind, and because for those that don't know, the whole film was Arnold's idea. It's a remake of a French film. Arnold saw that film and was like, yes, I love this. Took it to James Cameron. James Cameron was like, why would you want to do this? But if you're so passionate about it, 100%. And once he was passionate about it, he said, I think Jamie Lee Curtis. And Arnold was like, yeah, no, she's completely wrong. Don't do that. And they auditioned several actors, and James Cameron was like, it's Jamie Lee Curtis. I think he rewatched Fish Called Wanda and was like, it has to be her. And so he called Arnold and said, do you trust me? And Arnold was like, okay. And it kind of went from that to originally, apparently the original cut, the opening credits were Schwarzenegger's name, True Lies, and then the rest of the cast. And after seeing her performance and being so blown away, Schwarzenegger called Cameron, was like, it should be Schwarzenegger Curtis, True Lies. And Jamie Lee Curtis has said in interviews since, she's like, a lot of people don't really understand, but like the politics of Hollywood, those type of things are what help you get another job. So him making that call and being like, yeah, she deserves top billing with me, that's like a thing that's helped her career. And she's like, it's an amazing thing he did that. Like, people don't understand, there's small little gestures like that can help you get your next big role.
Yeah, and it's also like, so the opening scene, he's at the party in Switzerland or whatever. And one thing that I was really impressed by is that, like, obviously in so many spy things, they're like sneaking around. They're trying not to draw attention. And then you've got the opposite of that, which is the ridiculous James Bond, I'm going to loudly say my name wherever I go, which is too much, obviously. Yeah. But then there's this middle ground there where he's like wandering around the party being all like, oh, hello, nice to see you, and stuff, to all these people, and they're all being all like, who is that guy? I don't recognize him. But it kind of keeps him visible and makes it make more sense that people wouldn't immediately be suspicious of him.
Yes,
and
like, he's not trying to hide, and he's actively being like a person who's supposed to be at that party would be. He's interacting with people, freely moving around the room.
And he does the old tango and stuff, and like, it's such a great, like, it takes everything that like action spy movies like James Bond do, and like honestly just kind of does them loads better than I've ever seen in any of those other films.
I do also love that it has the thing that, you know, would eventually become Ethan Hunt's whole thing, is that even though he is very talented, he also just kind of just survives certain situations. So even though he smashes that opening thing, he times a lot of it wrong. It's like, crap, there's dogs. I mean, how he disposed of the dogs is amazing.
That's so funny. And like, and like, there's just so much of it that's so genuinely solid. And again, but the fact that they've put that much effort into creating this like believable spy thriller stuff to then immediately just fill it with dumb jokes that make no sense is just absolutely wild to me. Like, I had so much fun watching.
So one thing I want to point out, so two things, right? Two things about one scene. The bathroom scene.
Yep.
So first of all, you're watching that and it's like, man, Tom Cruise just watched this and said we should do this for Mission Impossible, right? It's the scene. It's the scene. And don't get me wrong, I still love Cavill and Cruise in that scene, but it's this scene. That's what it is. The second thing is the Terminator homage.
Yeah.
It's so
So
well
good.
done. It's so good.
I also think that what's really funny about it too is that like it's kind of like it's got the old classic person who shouldn't be in this crazy situation and accidentally comes into it, and it's an old man who's pooping, so it's like it has no right to be funny really.
Yeah.
And then it kind of pulls the the classic Family Guy thing where it just keeps cutting back to the old man looking scared because there's a gunfight in the bathroom for so long that by the end of it I was kind of giggling at those
Yeah.
shots
And then also,
because it
I don't
was
know what makes me laugh, but Arnold says sorry. Like, he actually apologized to the guy.
yeah. Well, I think that that's one of the things I really like about him is that the other thing that I think is really charming about him in this is that he's like extremely polite all the time. He's constantly being all like, "Sorry about that. Oh, could I borrow this, please? Excuse me." And it's just like, and again, like,
Including when he's in an elevator with an actual horse.
oh my god, the elevator and the horse in the elevator scene is so funny. And then and the bit where the woman's all like, "Say something to him," and it's like, and the husband's all like, "That's a fine animal you've got there." It's just like it's so, and he's like locked eye contact with this terrorist, looking at him while he
On a
stoops down
horse.
on this horse in a lift, and it's just so
It
stupid.
really is.
And then like, and then the jumping off the roof scene as well is really really funny.
The fact that he even considers jumping that distance on a horse is the
He's all
most
like-
incredible.
He's all like,
thing.
"This horse could definitely jump this," and then he's really angry with the horse afterwards. And it's just, yeah, that whole scene is so funny. And
Also,
like,
another incredible. You know, Arnold did that stunt for real and nearly died.
I'm not surprised by that. Like, but there's little things as well where like I feel like so many action films kind of just throw away like what would be an actual thing you'd do. So as soon as he's hanging over the edge of the building by the reins of the horse, he immediately just throws his gun away.
Yeah.
Because obviously you don't want one of your hands taken up by something when you're hanging by your hands.
Yeah.
But like I've seen so many films where they would either not show what happened to the gun, or they would like he would put it in his pocket before he did the thing, or he'd climb up with one hand holding it, but he just drops it because obviously you just drop it. He's
Yeah.
gonna fall off a fucking building and die if he doesn't
Yeah.
just drop. And like, and that stuff is so good.
Yeah.
And it's just like it feels like every step of it is really good. So we haven't mentioned yet, but Eliza Dushku is unbelievable in this.
Yeah.
Like she's
So
what, like
I-
14?
So I said earlier on, I don't know if you heard it, there was like everyone was having the time of their lives, apart
Yeah.
from Eliza Dushku. I don't know if you know the story about
No,
her.
I do know about that. Yeah.
So for
So
those
she
who don't
was-
know, and trigger warning, I'm going to speak about sexual assault. She unfortunately was assaulted by, I believe it was the head of the stunt team, and she was brave enough to tell a member of her family who confronted him. And I don't know how much further it went in production. I don't think that James Cameron or any of the rest of her cast members were ever made aware of this. But rather than own up to his mistake, there was a big stunt piece at the end of it, which she performed herself. But in retaliation for reporting her, he didn't rig her properly, and she broke 6 of her ribs.
Yeah.
Which she maintains to this day was purposeful on his part.
Yeah,
Seems
and
to
it
go a long
seems
time to do.
it seems from what I can make out, like as soon as she publicly spoke about that, James Cameron and Jamie Lee Curtis and Arnold Schwarzenegger were all
Yeah.
straight out there in support of her, not like they were trying to cover up anything that they were
Yeah.
involved in. And she also still seems to be on good terms with them and stuff. So I'm assuming that that after that she was scared out of reporting it any further because the
Yeah.
guy might fucking kill her.
Exactly,
And yeah, so it's absolutely repulsive, and
Yeah.
it's so upsetting that on a film where it feels like every aspect of it is designed to be fun,
Mm,
and where in a lot of the scenes that she has, she's clearly having loads of fun, and where she's obviously like, I think she must have been like 13, 14,
yeah.
but she's like unusually good for a teenage actor in
Yeah.
this, like way better than they generally are. And it's so unfair that had to be her experience of this.
I mean, yeah.
Yes.
I'm glad that she didn't let it deter her from having a bigger career. And you know what? At one point we'll talk about her because she's a funny one because she's obviously super charismatic. I mean, everyone that's worked with her, I think like Joss Whedon and everyone that's like said that she's one of those people that like insists on doing her own stunts and stuff. She's like really
She's
talented,
so
really capable.
cool. She's just
And,
unbelievably cool.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, things just never really went the way they should have done for her. Like, I don't know if you've ever watched Doll's House, but I actually really like that show, despite it being from Joss Whedon. I really like that show. I think it's a really good idea. She doesn't have the biggest range, which I think is kind of what hinders her in that show. But it's a great idea, and she's good in it. And
And she does that thing that she does so well. Like, it's never stopped Samuel L. Jackson from having a career, has it? That he only really does one thing. Like,
I mean, we'll get back to that comment. But yeah, but like, what the thing about Doll's House was apparently it was like the first, and I think a planned like 5-series deal, not 5 series of Dollhouse, but 5 different series that Fox had planned to have her in. They were so invested in her as a star that she was basically going to become the star of that, the face of that network. And then when that didn't really go the way they wanted it, like they sunk a lot of money into it, they kind of backed out the deal. And it's just weird.
Yeah, I mean,
I think in any other reality, she would be huge.
She's fantastic in Buffy. Like, she's absolutely show-stoppingly excellent. And obviously, like, that's a show with a lot of big personalities and big people in it who all are competing for time. And she walks onto the screen and absolutely dominates the whole show for all the time she's in it. She's amazing.
Yeah, it's weird. But she's not a bigger star, but yeah, she's great in this. I think everyone's great. And I think if there's one weak link, I would say it's Tom Arnold. And like you said, it's not really his fault. It's that the character's an annoying douchebag, so he's playing it.
Yeah, he's an annoying piece of shit. So like, it's a bit like, and if that's what he's going for, he's doing a great job of it. Yeah. I don't know what happened to the stunt coordinator, but hopefully he's dead.
Or he's in prison being shivved regularly.
Yeah, shivved nearly enough that he dies, and then allowed to recover in horrible pain, and then just shivved again. That'd be good, wouldn't it? But yeah, like, I think that Tom Arnold
like and subscribe.
I think that Tom Arnold is funny. And like, there are definitely some lines that he has that are really, really funny. Like his response when he finds out that Arnold thinks his wife's been cheating on him, and he's all like, "Buddy, welcome to the club," is really funny, right?
So like, great thing about that scene. So for those that don't know, he was married to Roseanne Barr, and they had a really, really public, really messy falling out. And in this movie, there is a moment when he talks about his second wife divorcing him, and when he came home, she'd taken everything, including the ice cube tray. And apparently that line is verbatim what he told Arnold Schwarzenegger about his divorce from Roseanne Barr. And Arnold Schwarzenegger turned around to James Cameron and was like, "What type of psycho bitch takes the ice cubes?" And it made Cameron laugh so much that he put it in the script. So that is Tom Arnold's real life.
Yeah, and like Tia Carrere's great. She's really.
She says this is her favorite movie because at the time, because she was like the babe, she was getting put in a lot of babe roles and not given much to do. And she's like, the fact I got to play a villain, I loved it so much. To this day,
yeah, and she's like. Movie. And she's a really fun and convincing villain. And like, what I really like as well is that when she has that fight with Jamie Lee Curtis, it's like, it's two really beautiful ladies fighting, and it would be so easy to make it into some sort of like gaudy gawping at them thing. But it's actually just incredibly visceral and really brutal. And like, and it's not male gazy at all. And it's camera work. It's filmed like
one of them gets hit in the face with a champagne bottle.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's really, really horrible. And that's the thing, like, what's really funny about this is that it does have that Home Alone, it's silly and funny. And then if you think a little bit about what's going on, it's just horrendous a lot of the time.
Well, it's funny because Adri came in when I was watching it, and she's like, I love the way how they just keep framing it as Jamie Lee Curtis being like, "Oh, I'm finally having an adventure." And it's like, no, miss, you're suffering through lots of trauma right now.
Yeah, the decision to film the triumphant kiss in front of a nuclear bomb being detonated is absolutely wild. And the bit where he covers their eyes is so funny.
It's really good.
Yeah, and all of that is so well done.
I do love as well how it's immediately followed by him having to get on a jet. And in the James Bond movie, he would just get in there and then know how to do it. But like Arnold's not done it in a while, so he's really shaky. And Tom Arnold's like, "Give him a minute. He's got this." That's classic. He loves to do that.
He'll get there, yeah. And he's being all like, he's got thousands of hours as a pilot. It's been a while, but he's going to be fine. And he's like scraping the top off that police car. And it's just, yeah, it's so funny. It really is. Like, and then the final sequence where like, I'm kind of a sucker for vertigo scenes.
Yeah.
And the bit where his daughter is on the crane and she's like falling and slipping is so like it made my stomach go like 3 or
Yeah.
4 times because I was just like, oh my god, stop showing me it from above, Jesus
Yeah.
Christ.
It's
But
funny because I don't know if
it's
you remember,
really
but Casino Royale has the opening scene has a similar stunt on pretty much the exact same type of crane. And
yeah
whilst I love that scene, as you just pointed out, it doesn't really show you the consequences of what happens if James Bond falls off. Like, we know you don't want to fall off a crane, but it never really shows you anything past their eye level. And so, like you said, just having that bird's eye view, you're like, oh my gosh, and she's a child. This is horrible. This can't happen.
Yeah. And I love that she steals the key from the nuclear detonation device and runs off. Like, that's such
Why
a
does the
cool
journalist
moment.
turn around and say, what key? I mean, I know he says it because the plot has to happen, but why would you tell the terrorists that the thing that they need to detonate a city is no longer there? Just shut up.
Yeah. But I mean, and that's that sequence where the other agent from the first mission is there with the camera, and then he like has a cool guy like moment where he shoots a couple of people is so good.
Yeah.
And then obviously Arnold arrives with the Harrier and just mows everybody else down with the machine guns. And like and yeah, it's just, and obviously like the stealing of the key ties back into the early bit where we find out she's been robbing Tom Arnold because
Yeah.
he's testing out a gadget, and like all those little things again, like what we keep saying about these movies, all those little things tie together.
Yeah.
And a lot of them do 3 or 4 things, and it's unbelievably efficient in its like we only get, I think, maybe 2 scenes to establish that his daughter's going off the rails because he's not present.
Yeah.
And it does it so efficiently, and it tells us about him and her and her mum all at once. Do you know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah.
it's just unbelievably tight.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously the striptease scene, the idea that he is tricking his wife into thinking that she's helping out spies and forcing her to strip in front of what she thinks is a stranger is not great.
No.
But again,
But
like,
also,
it's
that's
not.
super efficient in all the things it does, because there's like the moment when she drops the microfilm or whatever it is she thinks that she's supposed to have, and then she very cleverly needs to improvise and pick it back up. And I think he spots that, and so the gears, he's got several things going on. The gears are turning in his head that, oh wait, she could actually be pretty good at this. And then he's starting to see her as the woman he fell in love with, and at the same time, he's feeling guilty because he's like, oh my gosh, she's doing this because she thinks she's protecting me, and I'm actually lying to her. So there's so
Yeah.
much going on from both of them. She has to balance this goofy performance she does. She's trying to be sexy. She's scared. She's also slightly exhilarated because this is what she's been missing for a long time.
Yeah.
And they're both selling every aspect of that perfectly.
And it's really funny, and also it's got that kind of aspect to it where if this was a sequence in a James Bond film, he would just be tricking a woman into stripping for him, and then it would be played as like he's so cool.
Yeah.
But obviously, not only is it obviously obvious that it's not okay, but then also it's kind of presented more like a kind of a Frasier style farce sequence.
Yeah.
And then he does just get nailed in the head with a phone at the end, which is really funny, really, and I just think that the whole, and like when he's doing the tape recorder, and then she doesn't say what he expects her to say, and he has to quickly try and rewind it, and you can see him all awkward, and it's just like every aspect. The thing is that, again, it's one of those things where I was a little bit like, is this gross? But then it's just so funny that I was a bit like, I don't know, I feel like everybody in this is playing it the right way for me to not feel like it's horrible. Do you know what I mean? And like, and similarly, the interrogation scene could be really horrible.
Yeah.
But actually, as he pushes her, he sees this kind of, and again, Jamie Lee Curtis seamlessly switches into dramatic acting mode, and she delivers this kind of like speech about how she feels and why her life is unsatisfying to her. And it's unbelievably well delivered. Like she's like she and again, it's just absolutely.
And also, like, it's great character work on the other side of it, because obviously Tom Arnold is just like, the sex isn't good enough, huh? You want better sex? It's the sex, isn't it? It's the sex. And Arnold Schwarzenegger's just like, do you still love your husband? And that's what it all boils down to him. Like, obviously his ego kicked in initially, and his pride is hurt, and how could you do this to me? But underneath all the bravado and machismo, this is someone who just wants to know that the person they love still loves them.
Yeah, and it's really, really well delivered, and it's satisfying and fun. And then, just as that weird stalking his wife because he thinks he's cheating a story comes to the climax, the terrorists just seamlessly blend back in,
Yep.
and it's like
I do love that
it's
scene as well, where both of them is trying to protect the other, and Jamie Lee Curtis doesn't realize he's actually a spy, so she's going, "Let me handle this."
yeah, and that's so funny. And obviously, then that leads into the truth serum scene is really funny
It is.
and really, really well delivered, and it's really, really entertaining. It's just like every bit of it flows so neatly into the next one. And again, that's Cameron's power, is that you're never sat there like, well, what's the point of this?
Yeah.
Everything is doing three things. Everything links together perfectly. There's never a downbeat, and yet we get tons of quiet moments. It's just unbelievable how good he is at
It
this.
is.
And I genuinely kind of couldn't fathom that it was going to be this good.
Yeah.
And yet it was absolutely brilliant. I also think, like, one thing that I would give a real shout out to, which is very rare, is that, you know, we all make jokes about how the obviously beautiful woman is wearing glasses or whatever, and then she takes her glasses off, and it's all like, oh, now she's pretty, but she was always pretty. But like, there's something in this where obviously Jamie Lee Curtis is playing this kind of like frumpy housewife earlier on, but it's actually a moment, one of the only moments I've ever seen in a film like this, where that transformation moment really comes off. And the
Yeah.
main reason is because Jamie Lee Curtis in this is doing probably the most solid live action Clark Kent we've ever seen.
Yeah.
Where, like, it's not about the glasses and the awkward thing, it's about the posture and the way she behaves and how she feels
And
about herself.
I 100% agree, and I will also say Schwarzenegger does a great job at the very beginning, when we've seen him be this suave, sexy, he's done the tango, blah blah, and when he comes home to his wife, he also engages in hunchback, no, charisma or confidence, and is delivering the most boring monologue about the
About
new
computers,
the
yeah.
computers and the technology that will allow them to track a customer's spending habits. And he's droning on to the point that she later on jokes to a colleague that when she needs to sleep at night, she asks him how his day was. And
Well,
he
yeah,
totally sells that.
And that scene of her talking to her colleague is cut in with the triumphant "he's arriving at the government" thing, which should be in any other context a big cool scene, but obviously it's cut in with her being like, it's like he's saving the fucking world, is it? He's like, how is he so dull? And like that, I think, and that sells him both as somebody who's really competent at what they're doing, but also kind of as an underdog character, which is such a difficult line to tread. Like this, and her performance is so effective that you almost forget that Jamie Lee Curtis is incredibly beautiful, right? Like, and it's like, and that's an unbelievable thing to pull off. Like, and then obviously, then you've got the aspect of it that when she does start feeling more confident and she makes her dress look all sexy and does her hair and stuff, she's awkward because she's not been like this for a long time. And it's not like, again,
I really need to see the outtakes, because when she first starts dancing and it's like this awkward little shimmy.
Yeah, it's so funny.
There must have been so many outtakes, because she nails it. It's one of the funniest bits of physical comedy I've ever seen. Because
and again,
you look at her, and like you say, she just looks incredible. Her figure is amazing. The lingerie is sexy. She's got the stiletto. Like, how you would have to work really hard to not be sexy, and she does.
Yeah,
and it's so funny.
And again, if you're Jamie Lee Curtis and you're funny and everybody thinks you're beautiful, like, the acting you have to do to get into the mindset of somebody who doesn't feel attractive, which is assumedly something that she probably wasn't experiencing a lot at this point, because she was being given constant feedback that she was incredibly attractive.
Yeah.
But like, again, in all the other films, there's this kind of thing where lady takes off glasses, you know, puts on dress, and then she's instantly this extremely charismatic person. But or it's like the miscongeniality. Oh, she fell down even though she's attractive looking.
Yeah.
But like, it's not about, like, obviously the falling down bit is funny, but it's about the way she holds herself and carries herself as somebody who hasn't felt like they're desirable for a long time.
Yeah.
And then as she gets into it, it's really funny. And then she gets too excited and falls over. And it's just like, it's so well done.
Yeah.
Like, it's a joke that we've seen before, and it's an idea that we've seen many times, and yet again, and this is the thing with James Cameron, it's never something revolutionary that I've never seen before, but it's always just delivered so well that I'm all like, you know what, I like this version of this trope more than I've ever liked any other one, so I'm fine with this. And and that is,
the whole film is super long, but how would you cut any of this? I just don't know what needs to be cut. It's for how long it is, it's super efficient. There is not one wasted line of dialogue. Everything a character says builds to another part.
And if you cut any of the scenes which are more serious, straightforward, tension-based spy stuff, the comedy doesn't work as well.
Yeah.
Because the whole point of the comedy, it's doing that thing that Marvel is always trying to do, where it undercuts a serious scene with a gag, and yet 20 million films in, they've never done it this well. They've never got even slightly close. Maybe James Gunn's Guardians films kind of get near it, but it's never this good, ever. And I can't believe how good James Cameron is at directing films. It's like, this is, again, I would say maybe this is a 9 out of 10 James Cameron film, but like God, and there's just that one scene at the end, and it's really funny because you would think that the climax, that the triumph would be, oh, he's made up with his family, and it does show us that he's made up with his family, but then it's instantly all like, and now him and his wife are, and the daughter's just gone. It's all like, yeah, she's fine, she's fine, and they're happy, but also
she didn't need therapy at all.
But also now him and his wife do spy together, and they're really fun. And now he gets to tango with her, and they get to make Bill Paxton piss himself again, which is just like, that character's already had the scene where he's humiliated, and they're all like, "Nah, bring it back, let's do it."
What I do love is that, like, for anyone else, that would have been the most traumatic night of your life, and you'd never do it again. And clearly, not only has he kept doing it, he's somehow graduated to being part of these private parties, and he's still trying to grist women into having sex with him. He didn't learn anything.
And he's kind of worked in some of what he found out about what they were doing by like listening to them and stuff. It's so good. Yeah, I think that it's unbelievably like, god damn, I'm having so much fun watching James Cameron films. Like, I'm just smiling all the time. It's amazing. If anybody hasn't seen it, you should absolutely go and watch it. And you should also go on IMDb, look up James Cameron, just watch anything he's ever done. It's all gold.
Start with The Abyss, and then work from there. Patrick was really good.
Nothing. I don't think I've watched anything
this week. Okay.
I don't think so. I mean, I watched the new episode of Ink Master, and me and Beth have been watching New Girl. And I've been watching anything else? I don't think I've watched. I think I've barely watched anything. Oh, I tell you what, I had a YouTube channel recommendation, but I'm going to find that because I can't remember what it's called. So maybe you go.
Cool. Okay, so finally watched Oppenheimer.
Oh, did you? Did you enjoy it?
I did. A lot more than I've enjoyed anything Nolan for a while. Because I don't know if you know this, but I went to like the premiere of Dunkirk in IMAX. And what everyone walked out like revolutionary, and I walked out like, I never want to experience that again, because I get what he was going for. He wanted you to experience the shell shock of war and the volume and how visceral it was. I don't want to experience that for 2 hours. It was not fun experience. Didn't enjoy it. It was not comfortable. So I haven't watched the movie since. I don't plan to. And then Tenet, I know everyone says it's like the best James Bond film that's ever been made, but it just didn't work for me. I like Robert Pattinson a lot, but that film didn't work for me. So I've kind of been off the Nolan train for a while, but Oppenheimer's just flawless. It's really well paced. It's insane that I hadn't had any of the cast members leaked before I'd seen it. I didn't know who. So every scene, there's just another A-lister, and you're like, how many people are in this? They're all fantastic.
Yeah. And it's unbelievable that it's all like, hey, Cillian Murphy's in it. And you're like, yeah, well, he's great. And it's all like, Matt Damon's in it. And you're all like, yeah, Matt Damon's pretty good. And then Matt Damon comes on screen and starts acting. And you're like, oh, hey, look, it's the best performance Matt Damon's ever given. And
there's so many people that are already really good. And it's like, I mean, we're all so used to Robert Downey Jr. being on autopilot for Tony Stark
Yeah.
because he's so good at Tony Stark. You forget that man can really act.
Yeah,
He's
Robert Downey
fantastic.
Jr. rolls onto screen. You're all like, oh, hey, look, it's the best performance Robert Downey Jr. has ever given. And Emily Blunt, who we fucking love, and both of us think she's amazing. And the degree of complexity that her character has and the way she delivers it is absolutely incredible. I have a single criticism about this film, and that's that Florence Pugh isn't in it enough.
Yeah. But I mean, when
I
she's
would
in
have.
it, I mean,
When she's in it, she's
so
fucking
good.
show-stopping.
Yeah.
But I would love
The scary
to
thing about
have
Florence
seen.
Pugh, I think she's going to be one of those people that we won't even remember this performance in 15 years. I honestly think she's just going to get
Oh no, yeah,
better
she's
and better and
incredible.
better. She's so
What I would
good.
say though is that for me, what I really thought about it was that like I don't how long is it? It's like 3 hours long or
Yeah.
something, and I left it being all like, I wish it was longer.
I
wish
kind of
there
was
was
like, I would
more.
watch a TV series of this.
Yeah, like, you know, the era before he actually starts the Manhattan Project when he's teaching and learning and stuff. I would love to have seen more of that. Absolutely loved that. And like, it's just so good all the time. And I just kind of I can't quite comprehend how it could possibly be that good.
There's a, I don't know if you've
I,
seen, there's a big rumor that Nolan is sat down to actually direct a Bond. And the thing about Eon Productions is they're very much known for interfering and saying, we want this, this, and this.
yeah.
And if anyone from Eon is somehow listening to this podcast, just get out of his way. He loves Bond. This is what he can do when the studio just says, you're Christopher Nolan, have fun. Just let him do it. And he might make not only the best Bond film, but the best film of all time. Just let him do it. Just let him do it. He's phenomenal.
Yeah, he's amazing. So what I would say is what I have watched this week is a fair amount of cool YouTube stuff.
Mhm.
So did you watch the new Patrick H. Williams video about Ryan Reynolds and Dwayne
Loved
Johnson?
it. Loved it.
Yeah, that was really, really good. Really interesting. Really, I loved them comparing it repeatedly to Arnold and George Clooney and stuff, and being all like, what they're doing though, it's just not quite as cool as what those guys they're trying to copy did. Like, and I think that's really cool. There's a channel that I watch a lot. It's about anime, which is called Mother's Basement. And he generally, Jeff Doom, who does that channel, does a lot of, you need to have read a lot of manga and watched a lot of anime.
Okay.
But this week he put out this video about how he's just kind of sad that there's no traditional animation anymore. And he's like, I know why they've gone digital. I get that it's better for workloads. I get that it's better for the staff. I understand all of the reasons why, and I love a lot of modern digital anime. But then he's just showing these shots of like 80s and 90s animation and just being all like, I don't know, guys, there's just something about this. There's just something beautiful here that we've lost. And it's like this kind of like, it's only about 10 minutes long, but it's like this kind of sad lament to kind of the loss of traditional animation, which is something that I really, obviously, like, I know that we probably like animation more than most people.
Yeah.
But it is a really, really solid, it's a really solid thing. And then Without a Recipe's back. So again, like, I understand that this is going to be one of those things like my Spotify rap being all Taylor Swift songs. Where people might be a bit like, that thing is what you're into. But the Try Guys is a YouTube channel that is obviously like super mainstream. They used to be at BuzzFeed. They try things. That's the premise of it. But they're charming personalities. And the premise of Without a Recipe is that they try and make things without knowing how to make them. And then professional chefs judge them and they get zero recipe. And obviously, like, the first one, it came back and they all kind of cooked quite well. And I was a bit like, well, this isn't what I'm here for at all. But then the subsequent 2 episodes that have come out so far were both like absolute fucking train wrecks where they just ruin things and then they force these professionals to eat them and then they have to try and fucking critique them. And it's so funny. It really is. And I think that, like, there's a level at which it's one of those things that's like such a basic bitch YouTube channel that I'm sure a lot of people have been all like, oh, you know, why would I watch that? But goddamn, they're really, really genuinely funny. And I do know who's editing them, but obviously you won't know who's editing them because they're YouTube editors who only work on this channel. I know them because I'm pretty deep into the community and lore of the channel. But yeah, the editors are literally some of the finest comedic editors I've ever seen. The way that they cut things is just so impressive to really give you just punchline after punchline after punchline. Yeah, so I would very much recommend, if you've never watched any Try Guys content, maybe you saw a thing that happened last year where one of them had to quit because he was having an affair, and you were like, I don't know what that YouTube channel is. Like, just head on there and watch them cook things really, really badly. It's very funny.
I'll put all of Patrick's recommendations in the description down below. I've got 3 things this week. I'll try and blast through them. The first was I had just been like drip feeding myself it, mainly because I was just concerned with other stuff. But finally watched the final episode of Sex Education, and without spoiling it, they stuck the landing completely.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, really nice resolutions, really sensible resolutions for most of the characters. Like, not at all what you'd expect for a lot of the will they won't they relationships. But yeah, just like really well handled, really well done, really well filmed, really well acted. I forget his first name, but Gatwa, who plays Eric, man, cannot wait to see what that boy does in the future. He has so many amazing moments throughout this season. Without ruining anything, and it's been a big theme since the start of the show. So anyone who's watched any then the seasons will know a big part of his character is that he is out and proud, but is also from a deeply religious family, and he has to balance that, and that's a big part of this. And just one of those actors, he has a lot of scenes where he just has to reflect by himself, and it's the thing of like a single tear rolls down his eye, it rolls down his cheek, and you're like, okay, you're breaking my heart with one expression. He's just one of those actors. And if this is what he's doing in like his first major series, I can't wait to see where he goes.
Yeah, he's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. He's much better than, what's the main character called?
Otis, yeah.
Oh man, I hate that kid. You know,
and then Connor Swindles, who is Adam, also phenomenal in this. He's
great too. Yeah,
and he has some amazing moments. There's, I don't know if anyone's watched the show who listen stuff, but there is an actor who plays his father, and it's one of the best bits of casting I've ever seen because they 100% look like each other.
Yeah,
and not only that, they have a great chemistry, and it's really well utilized in this season. So,
and the degree of nuance he brings to the character of Adam in the earlier seasons is unbelievably impressive. Again, especially for somebody so young.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I think the thing with Sex Education that I've always thought is that, like, it's such a solid show, and it's funny and charming and likable, and it covers really interesting, really relatable, really powerful issues that a lot of TV shows don't cover. Yeah. And then it's just got that slappable little bitch as the main character, and not only is the actor like the most irritating fucker in the world, but then like the character's just such a cunt. Like, he's just you're just constantly all like, oh my god, fuck off. Like, if at the start of any season Otis got, you know, crushed to death by a falling log or whatever, I'd just be all like, oh my god, this is definitely going to be my favorite season. I'd probably rewind it and watch the crushing scene a few times just to be all like, yeah, look at that fucker, he gone.
There is a great scene in this season where a character is complaining about accessibility in their college, and basically saying that like the stuff that you guys just do is a real issue for me. It's a real hassle for me to be able to do because you don't make it accessible. The lift never works. The stairs are obviously a hindrance to me, and I just want to go about my day having the same kind of problems that you guys have, where I'm trying to decide what I want for lunch or like what to wear today. But unfortunately, I have to like worry about how the hell to get to my damn lesson. And so a lot of his students back him, and one of them is deaf, and she says, so basically at the time they're having this argument, there's been a fire drill, and she's like, you all just left without thinking about the fact I didn't hear the alarm. So I didn't, until I turned around, I didn't know I was in the room by myself. And out of nowhere, a character with MS says, I wish people could understand that the obstacles we face are not our disabilities, it's the attitudes of society. And it's this amazing speech, but then someone says, who is he? And someone says, I don't even think he goes here. And it cuts to the guy with MS, and he goes, I'm just really passionate. And there's so many good moments like that in this season where it kind of knows it's treading a line, because for anyone who doesn't know, they've moved to a new college, and it's the most diverse college on earth. So everyone is bi or trans or ace. And it's funny, it's been used as a criticism against this series. I actually think it's amazing that so many different spectrums of life and minority are getting represented on screen. but they're able to laugh at it themselves, and that scene is one of the great balancing acts of being like, yeah, it can be a bit much, but also, whilst we have this platform, we are going to use it to talk about these issues that are affecting a lot of people. So yeah,
Is
hats off
the
to
new
everyone involved.
college less intensely American than the previous one?
Yes, so they've clearly listened to that
Yeah,
feedback.
because like I know that it's like a fictional world. There's no
Yeah.
reason, but like the idea that they were in England, but they went to an American school, always just kind of it always felt to me like it was an odd choice because it pushed it a little bit further. Like you know, it's well, I'm sure I've talked about how much I fucking hate the In-Betweeners before, but one thing that show does really well is that, especially in the first season before it becomes stupid garbage, is that it genuinely feels like it genuinely reminds me of my experiences at school. It's like it
So the
nails it.
producers addressed that criticism after the first season, where apparently they had done loads of research. And in the UK, as you know, you and I, and pretty much anyone who's listened to this, we grew up with American media and we don't mind it at all. We just accept it. The Americans kind of tune off to anything that's not American. So if you can provide anything that has that aesthetic, English people would just be like, yeah, cool, whatever. And Americans will watch it because it has an American aesthetic. So
Yeah,
that's why
but
they did it, because they knew we were going to watch it and they wanted it to be a big success. And Sex Education has been a worldwide success. So it's that kind of, I think anything that looks like Bayside High has become a worldwide aesthetic for high school. So it works that way, but it doesn't always work the other way.
and I guess that I did watch it and put up with it, but it bothered me pretty consistently.
Yeah.
And there were loads of bits where I was all like, "But that's not how school works. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, where are they?
Yeah.
When is this? What's happening? I don't understand."
No, they've addressed that with this. It's
Good.
this haven where like the students are essentially running everything, and like I said, everyone is super diverse, and there's, you know, sexual health clinics and people to talk to you about trauma and things like that. And you kind of think, where would this school exist? But it also makes the point that maybe this school should exist. Maybe students should have more to say.
That's totally fair.
Yeah. So finished that. The third is gone out of my head, but one that you might enjoy, Fargo season 5. It's just started. You can pretty much watch it anywhere week by week on Amazon Prime. For anyone who hasn't watched Fargo, if you watch the movie, what I love about all the series, even though they're not written by the Coen brothers, they're just produced by them, they are all canon to the movie, and they all take place at different points in the history of the movie. And what it does really well is you can watch all of them together as well as the movie, and it's one big story, or you can watch them as a just standalone piece of media and still appreciate them. They all have phenomenal casts. I mean, the previous seasons have had Martin Freeman, Billy Bob Thornton, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Ewan McGregor, Kirsten Dunst, Jesse Plemons. In fact, like what's interesting is that on 2 different seasons, the 2 actors playing love interests have gone on to get married. So it's and so this season, I hadn't even seen the rest of the cast, but they were like, Juno Temple is the lead, and I was like, yep, I'm in, because I will watch Juno Temple in anything. She's fantastic. But she's also joined by John Hamm. I think it's Joe or John Kerry, who's one of the actors from Stranger Things. He's fantastic in this. And one thing that they also do really well in every single season of this is that there's always a weird supernatural or mystical element that just comes out of nowhere. And you're already getting hints of it within the 3rd episode of this season. Oh, and you'll like it because it's got one of the cast members of New Girl in it.
Who?
I don't want to say the black guy, but he's the black guy.
Lamore Morris? Lamore Bishop, maybe?
Lamore Morris, yeah. He is in it, and he's fantastic in it.
I'm sure he is. He's very, very funny. It's got an unbelievable cast.
Yeah.
Like, if you just look at the IMDb page, the people who have been in this thing. Oh my God, Jessie Buckley was in one of the seasons. I haven't seen that one.
Oh, she's fantastic.
Jesus Christ.
She's fantastic.
Well, I have to watch that now.
Yeah. So if you've never watched any of the Fargos, watch the movie, then binge the series. If you have watched them, you haven't caught up to this season. I mean, like Patrick does with some series, I would say maybe wait. I'm watching because I'm loving it so much. But I'd say, yeah, wait, binge it, you'll love it. Fantastic performance, always gorgeously shot. I can't wait to see what happens in the season finale, because one thing that this season does really well, that this show does really well, is you can never guess the finale. It's always really weird and out of nowhere, but it also makes complete sense for the characters they introduce at the start of the show. So yeah, Fargo. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I've never.
Oh,
I
I
don't
remember
think
what the third thing was. The Creator.
what's that?
So The Creator is the newest film from Gareth Edwards, who directed Rogue One.
Oh,
So here's the thing, like as I've always said, Rogue One is the worst Star Wars movie not named Solo, but it is hands down the best looking Star Wars movie. And this is the thing about Gareth Edwards. He knows his visuals. Like that guy works with the best cinematographers, and this is with the same cinematographers that who was also the cinematographer for the Batman. So he always works with the best people. He knows special effects. He's one of these directors that will really push for a studio to give him and his special effects team time to make the special effects look amazing. What I don't like about him, and this is not even something I'm theorizing, he said it in interviews. He works with the visuals first and then finds a way to make those visuals work in the storyline, which is why so much of Rogue One is just people staring into space in front of cool beaches and things, because he devised the shots and then was like, well, how can we make that? And he does that for a lot of his films.
there's no
And
story though.
There's no story. And The Creator is no different. Like, if I showed you the first 5 minutes of The Creator and asked you to guess how the film went, you would guess. And it's a shame because, like I said, visually, it's one of the most stunning films I've ever seen. And one thing that it's been getting headlines for is it was actually shot on a Sony camera, which is a consumer level cinema camera. So it's $4,000, but that's realistically that's something you or I could save towards. It's not like a lot of cameras that are traditionally used in Hollywood, which start in the $20,000 range. He bought this on a consumer level, and he basically his mindset was, if we use that camera, we can use a lot of the other budget towards the special effects. And so when you see it, everything from the costume design, the location, the props, the visual effects, and the special effects are all next level. It's easily
Man, it's got a great cast as well.
Great
Gemma
cast.
Chan and John David Washington and Ken Watanabe.
Yeah, who all put in
Like-
fantastic performances. It's just the fact that the minute a character is introduced, I go, okay, yeah, I know what's going to happen with that.
Okay, well, I might give that a shot because I like all of the cast and
Don't get me wrong, it's not bad, but it's sci-fi by numbers. Oh, but one thing I really will say is, we were talking about Looper a few weeks ago. You want to talk about child actors? The young girl in this, I really hope she keeps acting because she is phenomenal.
If you'd have told me in the early 2000s that they would make 2 Star Wars films that I thought were worse than Attack of the Clones, I would have been like, nah, nothing will ever be worse than Attack of the Clones. There's no way it could be, right? And I haven't even seen Solo. So they've probably
Solo is
made
only the second movie I've walked out of this movie theater in my entire life.
So they've.
I'm
almost certain.
One. There's probably gonna be a third one because Taika Waititi's Star Wars movie is not sounding good.
Well, I'm almost certain they've already made 3 because Solo. Rogue One is. I think Rogue One's the second worst Star Wars film I've ever seen. 9 though is just.
Yeah.
It's just dog shit of a level that I can't even comprehend. 9 is Prometheus bad.
Yeah.
It's like Man of Steel bad.
Speaking of Prometheus, have you heard that the Ridley Scott Alien is well on its way to happening? The new one?
Yes, it's not Ridley. He's only producing. It's I don't know. It's about a bunch of young people. But
have
fighting.
Have you heard the time period?
Yeah, it's between the first 2 movies, right?
Just stop.
Yeah. Prob's shite, right? I mean,
Listen, I'll never say never because I remember reading about Prey and thinking that sounds stupid, and then watching it.
Yeah, Prey was great.
This is a shot in the arm that franchise needed. So never say never, but I just Prometheus was obviously, I don't think it was ever supposed to be tied into the lore at all. And then the studio were like, yeah, this is nothing, tie it into the lore. And then it flopped, so then they forced him to make Covenant. I just don't think there's anything there anymore. I think you've done everything you can do with that franchise.
No, yeah, much like Terminator.
Going to a completely different planet and maybe there's something there you can do. I just don't know, but I don't think there's anything left. I think it's been milked dry.
It's exactly like Terminator. Watch the first 2, pretend the rest don't exist.
Yeah.
Move on with your life. And you'll have a better time than if you keep trying to recapture that feeling by watching garbage with the franchise tied to it. Oh, watch the first 2 with Alien. Watch the first 2 and play Isolation.
Yeah, there you go. That's all you need.
Yeah.
What are we watching this week?
Next week, we are further exploring the comic oeuvre of Arnold Schwarzenegger with the movie Twins.
I thought you were going to say Last Action Hero.
Okay, you know what? I think we should do Last Action Hero and Twins
Cool.
and Kindergarten Cop.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. It's
Let's
not
do
a
'em all.
doomer. It's not.
Let's do all three of them
Oh,
because
yeah.
man, I think that Kindergarten Cop and Last Action Hero are really underrated. I think
They
that
really
people
are.
like love to clown on those, but I think they're actually both really good. And obviously, Twins is like a stone cold solid classic. So yeah, let's
Another
let's
film
do
that,
it.
I mean, like, you could say this for a lot of Arnie's films, but you knew he had clout in Hollywood when he could get, like, how do you get Twins greenlit? It's insane.
Like, in what world do you turn around and be all like, it's a movie where me and Danny DeVito are twins, and it's like, and someone's all like, sure, yeah, go for it, mate. Like,
Before we finish, two of my favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger stories. So I don't know if you heard Charlie Day recently talking about his favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger story, but he's basically like in between takes on Always Sunny. Danny DeVito was just always telling him the most amazing stories, and he said one was about how in the 80s, Danny DeVito went to this party that was like just full of all the big wigs and like every major player, and they had like literally spelt the names of the people going out in cocaine. So he gets there and he's like, Danny in cocaine. And then he turns around and there's a table with Schwarzenegger. So it's the biggest table in the room. And it's just spelled out. And he looks up and he's like, Arnold's got the biggest eyes. And he goes, Danny, look how big my name is. And then my favorite is, I don't know if you remember the awful, awful movie, Stop or My Mum Will Shoot.
yeah.
So it's like one of the films that very nearly came close to tanking Stallone's career. And it was at the time when they were both like really, you know, the guys, and so they were trying to beat each other in the box office. And so Arnold, being the absolute genius he is, he was given the script first and was like, this is the worst thing I've ever read. And then he got this light bulb and was like, told his agent, tell the studio I really want it and I will do anything to be in it. And he knew that would get back to Stallone. And Stallone was like, I will do anything. Because like Stallone was like, if Arnold wants it, it's going to be a hit. So Stallone aggressively campaigned for the part, like was auditioning, doing all these amazing things, agreed to take a pay cut. Studio was like, sorry, Arnold. And Arnold was like, I guess I'll live. And then like, apparently
So-
one of those things that like at the premiere, Stallone saw him and was like, I know what you did.
Oh my god! There's my favorite one is Bill Hader tells this story about how he was working on the movie Collateral, like as a grip or something, and he
Show me your leadership
met Arnold.
capabilities.
Yeah, show me your leadership capabilities, because he met Arnold, and that was what he said to him on his first day. But like, I think what's best about that is obviously Bill Hader's spot on Arnold Schwarzenegger impression. But
Have
yeah,
you ever seen the
God,
deepfake
like,
version of that?
no,
So if you Google it after everyone has watched it, after you've finished watching this, Google Bill Hader deepfake. And so what someone's done is it starts as just Bill Hader, and as he's telling the story, his face slowly morphs to Schwarzenegger at the time he's doing it. It's creepy as hell, but it's also, it just adds to, like you said, how spot on his impersonation is.
awesome. But yeah,
Cool.
that's great.
So yeah, next week, join us for more Arnold Schwarzenegger. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff.
Like and subscribe, and don't forget, nobody's disappointed when you pay more for meat. Everybody wins.
I'm vegan, so I don't approve that message, but
Oh, well,
see
why
you
don't you go
soon.
have a bowl of leaves?
I plan to. We'll see you soon. Bye.